When will you move to the USA? Does the wife want to move to the United States?
So these are some of the most commonly asked questions on our channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about this in more detail. My name is Cruz and this is my wife.
Denise!
And for anyone new to our channel, we're an international couple living here in Japan for 5 years. We met and got married here 3 years ago, and we speak Japanese together as our common language, and we make videos here on YouTube about cycling and our life here in Japan. So if you're interested in either of those things, please consider subscribing and help us reach our goal of 100,000 subscribers for 2021. So will we be moving to the United States? The answer right now is... I don't know.
Yeah.
So we don't have an answer right now, and the reason for that is because the world is a crazy mess right now with the whole global pandemic situation, and we haven't been able to make a solid plan moving forward. Right now, our safest bet is to stay in Japan and wait this thing out, but we are considering it as a possibility for moving forward at the end of 2021, going into 2022. And we're going to be discussing that in today's video. What are the good points in moving to America? Why would we maybe not want to move to America? Is it a good decision for us? And this video will be a little bit long, so I'll be adding some timestamps down below so you can check out the section that you're most interested in. At first, it's mostly going to be me talking, but at the end of the video, we're going to get my wife's opinion and see what she thinks. As a Vietnamese woman, does she want to move to America? What does she think are the good points and bad points? So we'll be saving that at the end of the video, so stay tuned. And let's go ahead and get started.
Let's go!
Let's go. So we actually had some great weather today and the first snow of the year, so I'm going to be talking about this first part while walking around and showing you around our neighborhood here in Nagoya, Japan. So this is where me and my wife have been living for the last 5 years, and it's a really sad thought to think about moving away from here and separating from where we met and where we grew our relationship together. But when we start to think about what's best for us in the future, we're starting to think that maybe staying in Japan isn't the best option for us. And that's where thinking about America comes into play. So firstly, I want to talk about some of the general good points of moving to America, and also some of the good points specifically for our situation and why we're considering it, but also talk about some of the negative points of America and why we're not so excited about the idea of moving there. And then we're going to wrap up with our conclusion thoughts at the end. So going into some of the general good points on moving to America, the first thing that comes to mind for me is just more career opportunities. So I've finished my college education, I did my undergrad, I did a master's degree, I specialized in web development, and there's a lot more career opportunities for me there using those skill sets. And also if I wanted to build my own company, it's just a lot easier for me as an American and not having to go through the extra paperwork of setting that up as a foreigner in Japan, and then also having to deal with the tax liabilities of setting up a corporation in a foreign country, and then the risk of double taxation in Japan. So it's a lot easier and a lot more opportunities in terms of career, as well as just starting up my own company. If we're going to do something in the future cycling related, using this channel as a base, there's a lot of ideas that we're considering. The second big point is that it's really friendly for online businesses. So when we start to focus on building our businesses, I want to first start on focusing on online specific businesses. And this is just a lot easier to do in America. They've just adjusted to that trend a lot more quickly, I feel, than Japan has. Japan's definitely way behind the curve in that sense. And number 3, there's just a lot better salary options in the US compared to Japan. So I made a video recently about why a lot of foreigners leave Japan. And comparatively, when you compare the salaries, Japan has a pretty good salary relative to some other pretty high level countries. But compared to America, especially for some of the same similar types of jobs, like engineers generally get paid more in the US, and web developers, programmers specifically, get paid a lot more in the US. So, and even just the minimum wage is a lot better in the US. So work that my wife can do, she's unfortunately not college educated, and she doesn't really have a high paying skill set. So even just the work that she'd be able to do in helping out doing some part-time jobs and stuff, she'd be able to make a lot more money in the US compared to Japan, and a lot more compared to her home country in Vietnam. The fourth good point in general for America is that there's a lot of diversity in places that we can visit and different tourist attractions that we can go to. So America's a huge place, and even if we just stay in the same country, there's a lot of places that we can go to, and there's a lot of new places that I can show my wife and we can travel to together. So there's still a lot of places that we can visit in the US. So next, going into the good points specific to our situation, the first one is going to be the strong passport and strong citizenship. So my wife is Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese passport is actually really weak. So if we wanted to go traveling somewhere together, there's very few countries that she can enter without a visa. And applying for those visas is actually quite difficult. We need to prove that she has like certain level of assets of her own or some job that she can go back to. And it's just a lot of hassle and extra paperwork and a lot of extra stress that we don't want to deal with if we ever want to go on a trip together. So getting that passport to her just gives her that extra peace of mind as well for like if something like this happens, another crazy pandemic happens, and we need to be able to stay in the same country together. It really helps having the same citizenship. So for example, if we were separated during this pandemic, I wouldn't be able to meet my wife in Vietnam and she wouldn't be able to meet me in America because we both don't share permanent residence or citizenship of the same country. And even if we were both permanent residents in Japan, they wouldn't have allowed us back in for quite a few months during this whole lockdown situation. So yes, having the same passport, having the same citizenship would just be a huge peace of mind and really helpful for us in the future. But that would be a 5-year investment at least until she's able to get that citizenship. The second good point for us is that my wife would be able to study English and be able to speak English, and there's a lot of benefits that go with this, like just work, being able to communicate with my family and other people, and just opens up a lot more possibilities for her. The third one is us being able to have a stable home base without any visa worries. So now we're focusing on this YouTube channel. We have a lot of different projects that we want to focus on. But having that one place to sort of call home that you can always go back to and you don't need to worry about visa issues, this sort of ties into my first point. But yeah, this is just really helpful and something that we want moving forward. We don't want to have to worry about visas, and we want to have that place that we can always go home to. The fourth good point is a strong cycling culture. So I grew up in the Metro Detroit area, and that place is just blessed with a huge cycling community. There's so many great mountain bike trails, there's so many great clubs and group rides going on, and there's just always something going on. Almost every day you can find people to ride with, and there's a lot of great places to ride at, and the cycling culture is just really developed and really well nurtured over a long time. We also have an indoor velodrome in my hometown now, which just looks really awesome, and I can't wait to go check that out. The fifth good point for us personally is that we'd be able to be closer to my family, and we'd also have a more reliable and stable support network. So in case anything happens, we have people that we can rely on, people who can help us, and I can visit my family during the holidays for once. The sixth important point for us is it gives us a lot more options in terms of investments and investing for our future and better preparing for retirement. So we'd be able to invest in real estate and actually get mortgages for our houses. This is something that's impossible for us here in Japan. And even if we were to purchase real estate here in Japan, it's not really an investment. Actually, the real estate value depreciates here in Japan for the houses anyway. So it's considered more of a liability than it is an asset. And Vietnam has a pretty well growing real estate market right now, but it's not quite as stable as the real estate market in the US. So that's something that we are looking forward to doing and eventually getting our own home one day. The next good point for us is education. So my wife wants to have kids one day, and if we have kids, that's another thing that we're going to have to consider in the future is where do we raise them? What education system do we put them through? So if we put them in school here in Japan, they'd be going and learning Japanese. But if we do it in Vietnamese, the entire education system would be in Vietnamese. The only other option is to pay for international school, which you might get some really good quality education, but that's probably outside of our budget. I've looked into some of the prices for the international schools, and it's not really something that's easy to afford. So the quality of the education in the US can be really good depending on where you live. And if you live in a good area, you're not breaking your bank getting that education. So that's another big plus for moving back to the US. And another exciting thing, this is just sort of a bonus item, is I really wanted to try RV life or van life at some point in my life. And this just sounds like an awesome opportunity, going back to the US and trying that out, being able to explore around the country together. It's something that would be really difficult for us to do in any other country. So that is something I'm excited about possibly doing together one day. And that's pretty much all of the good points that we've thought about, at least so far. Maybe you have some other ideas. If so, let me know down below in the comments some other good points on moving back. But now it's time to go into the bad points. So it's not always just sunshine and butterflies and all that. There are a few negative points that we have to be realistic about. And the first one, of course, is just being separated from what's our home now. So living in Japan for the last 5 years, this has been our home. This is what we're used to. This is where our entire relationship has been founded. And not just Japan, but the entire Asian region. That's where my wife's family is from. She's from Vietnam. And there's a lot of other places that we still want to visit here in Asia. And by moving back to the US, I feel like being separated will make it that much harder to come back here. Obviously, the flight prices are a lot more expensive, and if we build a base over in the US, we're not going to want to or even be able to spend that much time and money coming over to this side of the world. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we haven't really considered moving over to the US, because I feel like once we do that, it's going to be a really permanent move, and we have to invest at least 5 years so that my wife can get her permanent residency or citizenship and finish all that. So it's a really big commitment for us. But that's a more personal reason. Let's go into some of the more general reasons first, and then I'll go back into some other personal reasons. So one of the things that I'm really scared the most of living in the US is the healthcare system. So we're both really healthy people. We don't have any problems. We rarely go to the hospital. But just the fact that one possible injury can cause you to go bankrupt, and there's not that many great healthcare or health insurance systems and high deductibles, the co-pays and all that. I've been fortunate that I've been living here in Japan and they have a great national health care system that I haven't had to worry about that in the US. But I have seen and read some crazy horror stories about how people go bankrupt just because of the healthcare system in the US. And right now, this is the biggest reason that I don't want to move back to the US. And I do hope they are able to fix this pretty soon. Another negative point is the transportation network. So here in Japan, there's a great public transportation system. You can take a train or bus and go anywhere. It's reliable, it's on time, and generally the roads are pretty safe. In America, you pretty much have to have a car, otherwise there's no other place for you to get around. There are, of course, some places that have more trains on the East Coast and so on, but it's pretty much car or nothing. And I really enjoy having no car in my life, and I do want to go car free at some point in my life, unless we go RV life. That's the exception. So it's not so much that I hate the cars, but I do think I'll really miss having the really nice public transportation system here in Japan, and just being able to go to the airport without having to borrow a ride from someone or pay for a crazy expensive taxi. The next negative point that I am quite concerned about is the crime. So a lot of people think that America is this safe place, and I used to think it was relatively safe until I left America, but compared to Japan, and even compared to Vietnam, America is just downright scary. Of course, this comes down to where you are, but if you compare a decent medium or large size city in America to a medium or large size city in Japan, I've never once felt scared, even just slightly scared, in my time here in Japan. Even in Vietnam, in the busiest cities, in the most craziest, tiniest, darkest of alleys, I've never felt even slightly remotely scared in either country, Vietnam or Japan, or most of Asia for that matter. But in America, if I'm in some shady alley in some big cities, I'll feel slightly scared, I'm not gonna lie. So there is a big difference in that, and for me personally, I feel fine, but it's my wife that I worry about. If she's there, she's not a native English speaker, and she's in some alley by herself, walking around, I'd be worried for her, and that's something I have to be realistic about. That's fortunately something we don't have to worry about here in Japan. The next negative point in America is just the whole political atmosphere right now, the whole hyper-polarized situation where you're either one way or the other way, and I just feel like there's a lot of finger pointing, and just you blame someone for being on the other side rather than talking about the issues, and this goes for both sides of the party, so it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. I really think this is a toxic environment, and unfortunately not getting any better anytime soon, but we can hope. The next negative point is the lowering quality of life. So general costs of goods are going up, and wages and stuff like that aren't really going up to match that. And just in general, the ranking of the US in the overall quality of life index has been going down year by year, and not seeing any improvements for that. So fortunately, if you play it right, you do well with your job, you might be able to still have a nice quality of life. But that is something that is sad to see in the US, that overall the general person, the general family is struggling more and more each year. And that leads me to the last point, and that is just sort of the whole drug problem and crime problem in the US, and that is there's a lot of people that abuse alcohol, abuse different like prescription drugs, and just the overall general drug culture that, like, even though I never did drugs or anything like that growing up, it was something I was aware about. It was something I saw other people doing, and it's something that's fairly common, I think. But compared to like a country like Japan or Vietnam, that's like not even a part of the conversation. It's rarely exists. Even I'm sure it does exist in some places, but it's not nearly as public or as commonplace as it is in the US. So if I do have kids there, I don't want them to really be exposed or even be around that kind of environment. So that's another thing that I really hope that they're able to improve one day. But right now, they're not addressing the issue. They're just punishing the people who have those problems and not like addressing the root cause and trying to fix those issues and treating people like a sickness, but rather like a criminal. So, but yeah, that's another really unfortunate thing in the US. And finishing off with some of the more personal bad points for us. The first one, of course, is, like I mentioned earlier, moving to the US would really relocate us away from any connections over here in Asia. So my wife is from Vietnam. She'd want to be able to visit her family more often, but setting up base in America, even just flying back once a year, it's at least a $2,000 or $3,000 expense just for the flight ticket alone for us to go there, not to mention the time we'd have to spend off of work and doing other things. So yeah, after spending all this time in Asia here together, it'd be a really hard transition for us, especially for my wife being away from her family. And the other kind of personal bad point for my wife is it'd be a huge adjustment for her. She wouldn't really have any connections there. She's still not even close to like comfortable speaking English. She speaks Japanese now, so we'd have to try and find a Japanese speaking community there, but it would be a much harder transition for her. Obviously with great rewards if she's able to adjust and improve her English though. But yeah, that'd be tough for her. And she also mentioned she doesn't like cold places. So my hometown is in Michigan, which is quite cold. And we're walking outside here in Nagoya. You can see we don't get snow here very often, actually. It didn't snow at all last year. So this is why I'm really excited to be able to film this video today and show you guys the snow here. But this is about as cold as it gets here. It doesn't get much below freezing temperature, only a couple days of the year. But my hometown in Michigan, we're at like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, really cold temperatures. But anyway, that pretty much sums up all of our ideas, the good points and negative points on Japan. So let's head on back inside and meet back up with Tuan-chan and get her ideas on if she wants to go to America or not. Alright, we're back in the studio with Tuan-chan, and now it's time to get her opinion on this topic. So does she want to go to America? 行きたい? どう思う? アメリカに行くのは。
半分半分。
半分半分。
Half half.
Half half.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's ask, what are some of the reasons why she wants to go?
まず英語の勉強ができる。で、英語が上手になったら、未来に役に立つ、ビジネス役に立つ、いろんな道広がる。英語ができたら。
あともう一つは？
もう一つの理由が強いパスポートを取れる。今ね、私のパスポートがベトナムのパスポートがレベルが低い。で、行きたいところが行けない。アメリカにも行けない、ヨーロッパも行けない。クルーズと一緒に行きたいけど行けない。難しい？
Yeah, we've been wanting to try and plan some more travel. Obviously we can't with COVID and everything, but even after that, it's difficult for us to plan travel to different locations because she can't go almost anywhere with a Vietnamese passport. And she has to apply, and without having assets or a job of her own, it's really difficult, even me acting as a sponsor for her. So that's going to be a big difficulty for us moving forward. And we have been asked, like, why don't we get a Japanese passport? And the reason we can't do that is Japan doesn't offer dual citizenship, which is really unfortunate because I don't want to have to give up my American citizenship, and she doesn't want to have to give up her Vietnamese citizenship. So that's unfortunately not an option for us now. Unless some point in the near future Japan decides to offer dual citizenship, that might change our plans, but we'll have to wait and see. What about the negative points about going to America?
まずアメリカとベトナム遠いから、距離遠いから数ちょっとあんまり会えない。
家族に。
で、プ だとすごい高いから。
Yeah, it's not cheap flying between Asia and America, so that'd be pretty
2000?
expensive.
2000?
2人で2,000.
Yeah.
But together it'd be $2,000 at least. Maybe cheaper if we're in like California or New York with a cheaper airport, but.
Yeah.
あとは？
あとが寒い。
寒い。
いや、寒い。
アメリカ全部寒いじゃないよ。北の方だけ。
まあ、だいたい行ったらクルーズの地元に住む道が寒いよね。
まあ。So yeah, my hometown's Michigan. It's pretty cold most of the year. If we do move back, I'm sure we'd probably start as a home base in Michigan to get our just sort of footing settled in the US, but I don't know, after that we'd possibly look into moving to another place, but there are some exciting things in my hometown, some awesome cycling network and indoor velodrome, which is new as well now, so but she doesn't like cold places, so we'll have to wait and see.
寒いところダメ。
So that pretty much sums up where we are right now and why we haven't moved back to America. We haven't decided whether we're going to be doing this or not, but we are considering it in the future. As you heard in today's video, there's a lot of good points for moving to America and not so many bad points. So logically speaking, it does make a lot of sense for us to eventually move there at some point. We don't know whether that would be next year, in the next 5 years or so, but I think the sooner we can get to US citizenship and US passport, the more useful that will be for us in the future. So this is something we are strongly considering in the future. Obviously, due to the current global pandemic with everything going on in the world, our best bet right now is to stay in Japan for the foreseeable future until things get a little bit clear moving forward, and that's what we're planning on doing. I've signed a whole work contract for the full next year, but we are considering options for after that, and moving back to the US is one of those options. We are also considering some other options like moving to Vietnam. That's where she's from. We were thinking about moving to Da Nang, the city over there. And there's a lot of exciting reasons that we'd want to move to Vietnam. For one, being closer to her family, being in a growing economy, not having to worry about visa issues again. But actually, on closer inspection, looking more closely at living in Vietnam, the taxes are pretty high there. But I think we do still want to live there for a portion of our lives to see if we both like it. But whether we do that before we move to the US or after, I'm not sure, because we can always move there after we get her citizenship in the US, and then we can retire in Vietnam or something like that. There's a lot of different possibilities. And we are also considering one more secret option that's sort of come up lately, and that is moving to Europe. Yeah. So Thuong has actually never been to Europe before. I was lucky and I was able to travel there for work last year, going to Eurobike in Germany and going to Italy for the BMC event. I've got my BMC shirt on right now. And yeah, Europe's another place that we're considering. It's a nice neutral place. So it's neither of our home country, but there are some countries in Europe that offer a sort of online freelance visa, and we're hoping to build our business more online, doing more stuff with freelance web programming, YouTube, and blogging. So we're looking into some different countries in Europe. For example, Portugal has a nice option, and you can get citizenship in 5 years, and it's still a really strong passport. That's another tempting option that we're considering moving forward in the future. So we'll be making a follow-up video for this on our Patreon page as well for all of our supporters over there. We'll be going in this in more detail, in more personal information. So if you're interested in checking that out, go check out our Patreon page. And also a big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon who helped us over this last year, this last crazy year. We really appreciate your support, and we look forward to making more videos for you guys in 2021. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks as always for watching. Happy New Year, happy 2021, and let's hope that this year is a little bit better than last year. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We've got our temporary silver play button. This is going to happen this year. This is our big goal for 2021. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time here on Thuong Cruise.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.